Hey everybody, today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different than usual. I am beginning 2022 with my very first YouTube interview, and this is with Dillon Freasier, who you may not know by name, but very likely you know the film that he was a part of. He starred as H.W. Plainview in the film There Will Be Blood from 2007, directed by Paul Thomas Anderson, starring Daniel Day-Lewis. He never did any acting before or since. He was just a kid in Texas around the Marfa area. Marfa is where the film was shot, and he was kind of plucked from obscurity to go on this amazing journey and make one of the great American films, or be a part of it. A little bit of background on how I organized this whole thing. About 5 years ago, I reviewed the film. I'm from Texas, he's from Texas. I thought for some reason, well, I'll just send him my review. I don't know why I did that. I would not do that today. Didn't expect him to watch it, but he did. And ever since then, kind of off and on, we've been in correspondence. And finally, I asked him if he'd be interested in doing an interview. He is a very private guy. You know, I try to respect that, but he was gracious enough to say yes. So I couldn't be more thankful. And I think it's going to be a real treat. I really enjoyed the conversation. I learned some things that I didn't know beforehand, and I hope you guys also enjoy it. You know, whether you're a film fan, especially a fan of the film There Will Be Blood. Before I get into that, though, I will plug my website as always. It is deepfocuslens.com. I am an artist. I do commission portraits and I sell prints of my work. If that is something that you're interested in, you can always go to the site below. And if you have a question about a commission or a print, you can always email me. My email is in the description box below. So without further ado, here is my interview with Mr. Dillon Freasier. Hope you enjoy.
Okay, so first of all, I just wanted to thank you so much for doing this again. It means a lot to me, and I think it's going to mean a lot to to the viewers and everything, because this is really cool. We have not really, at least that I can remember, we haven't talked about the experience of the movie or anything like that. So this is really like my first time hearing it from you. So I'm really excited about that. I consider There Will Be Blood to be probably one of the great American films of the 21st century, made by one of the great film directors of our time, Paul Thomas Anderson, and starring one of the great actors. So that's like a trifecta of awesome, very, very, very cool. So I'm excited to hear about that. But I think I'm going to start a little bit earlier. Let's go back a little bit to where you were born. You were born in Fort Davis, is that right?
I guess now's my chance to set the record straight.
Okay, cool.
I was actually born in San Angelo, and at the age of 3, I was adopted, and just kind of moved around from ranch to ranch. My dad, he was a day working cowboy. He worked on ranches, traded horses, did whatever he had to do to make ends meet. So we moved around quite a bit, down in the hill country, down along I-10, and then we ended up in Fort Davis about the time I want to say first grade. I mean, it was very rapid moving. That's the true story, it's a lot easier to just allow people to say I was born in Fort Davis than to set any record straight. But yeah, I was born in San Angelo.
Wow. Okay. So, yeah, I totally did not know that. But like Marfa, was that like a steady place for you to live for any period of time, or was it just kind of briefly that you were there?
We lived in between Fort Davis and Marfa. There's a road that you can take when you're leaving Fort Davis to go to Marfa, and it's a road that'll take you all the way to a little settlement called Kent. And you can take a road that cuts over to Valentine from there. But I lived in a little ranch house right next to this mountain called the Point of Rocks. It's a really neat mountain, and it's right outside of town. I mean, right outside of Fort Davis. You like I said, you take that right, as soon as you get out of town a good ways, and that mountain's on the right hand side, and the house I grew up in is right directly on the other side of that mountain, just right on the highway.
Wow.
So I grew up climbing mountains in my backyard, just getting to be outdoors, shoot BB guns, do everything a little boy wants to do.
Yeah.
It was a great way to grow up. I think, I think everybody needs to experience it, whether, it's growing up or going to Marfa for the weekend, and kind of seeing the Davis Mountains. And I would recommend that mountain that was beside my old house. It's a very easy mountain to climb. It's a very good, beginner mountain.
Like, what kind of kid were you? Like, if I were to ask like your family, what kind of kid was he growing up? What would they say, or what would your friends say?
Well, if you ask my family, I was quite the hellion. I got into everything. Always asked why, had so many questions about everything. I like exploring and doing things. And I guess you could say I was a little bit more mature beyond my years because I grew up, working cows and riding horses with my dad. So, I mean, there was no time to be a kid, there was no time to be, you can't, lay around on a Saturday and watch cartoons,
Right.
getting up at 4 a.m. on Saturday and loading a trailer, and going and working cows somewhere.
Yeah. So like, you know what it means to work.
Certainly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it gave me the work ethic I have today. So I really cannot complain. I've had plenty of time to be a kid in my late teens. So.
Yeah. Well, that's good. As long as you did, I think that's important. Like, as far as acting, I'm going to assume that just kind of fell into your lap. It was never something that you considered, or was it even an idea, or was it just?
The thought had never crossed my mind in my entire life,
Okay.
at that point. And it was like, as soon as it all started to come together, everything just kind of fell together, and it happened so quick,
Okay.
It wasn't something I set out to do. It wasn't something that I prepared for, even, so to speak. And I was like, well, I'm here. Yeah, let's make it happen.
Yeah.
And, I enjoyed it. It was great.
So, how old were you when There Will Be Blood came into your life? 9, 10?
Probably thereabout. Yeah.
Okay. And how do you remember specifically how it came into your life, how you first heard about it or were approached, or?
So I got pulled out of class one day by the principal, I think. And he told me, I mean, this was so long ago, I'm just really trying to gather it all in.
Sure.
But, he was kind of telling me about that there's this casting director and she's, looking at people to do this film, go home, ask your mom if you want to talk to, if you can talk to her, what have you. And he kind of facilitated it right off the bat. And like I said, I went home and kind of got permission. I ended up speaking with Cassandra. I believe her last name was Kulakundis. I'm pretty sure I'm saying that. It's been years. It's been a long time.
No
She
worries.
was a fantastic person. I mean, just I spent a lot of time with her, in the beginning stages of the casting. So when we first got together there in the schoolhouse in the first grade room. It was Mrs. Glover's room, and she set a camera up and just kind of asked me questions. She didn't have me read any lines. It's just kind of, tell me about this or that. What do you like to do? What do you do in your spare time? What do you not like to do, but you do? I think she could kind of tell that I was a little rough and rowdy and on the outdoorsy side, so she's, really trying to get in my head, try to figure things out. And that's really all it was. And she may have had me read, little short, lines. I mean, it wasn't anything crazy right off the bat. And I ended up just walking out of there like, oh, that was weird, back to class,
Yeah.
She ended up getting in touch with my mom and they were talking. Well, my mom ends up pulling her over, and I think that's on Wikipedia. Mom tells the story better than, I can, but my mom was a highway patrol. So she walks up to the window, out of state car, license, whatever, gets her ID and reads her name. And it's like, I think you're supposed to be coming to my house this afternoon. And Cassandra was like, looks at, reads my mom's last name. It's like, I think so, So that's how that happened, and a lot of people, I think I've heard, somewhere that I only got the part because Cassandra was trying to get out of a speeding ticket. I've heard all kinds of different stuff. I've never talked to anybody about it, but
I heard about it. Honestly, I was 17 the first time I heard your story. And I think it was a New York Times article. Mm-hmm. And that's how I found out about your mom pulling her over. I think that's how it was. And I remember, this is before I saw the movie. I think it was just in theaters. And obviously I was big into film and I read the article and I thought, that's really cool. Mm. So, I mean, just the idea of it, I thought was cool. But also it's interesting what you're saying. It fits right along with really great directors, they look outside of the box. They look for authentic people,
Mhm.
and they're asking you about you, and like, because they want to probably bring you, probably the authenticity of who you are into the film. And I think There Will Be Blood, just the casting of faces is extraordinary. I mean, really, it's amazing. And not just that film, I just saw Licorice Pizza, just an extraordinary sense of faces. He captures faces beautifully.
Mhm.
And so what you're saying, I feel like, yeah, that sounds absolutely right in terms of just really fine, like hand picking for casting.
Mhm. Certainly.
So if I may ask, when did you meet Paul Thomas Anderson for the first time? Was it early on? Was it much later in the process, if you recall?
Paul was the second person I met
Okay.
after Cassandra. So I want to say he came over to the house and we kind of went over the script. You know, he kind of told me this is what this is going to be about. You know, this is what, you know, this is the story, and we just kind of went over it together for I don't know how long. We just kind of kicked it. You know, we had dinner. He's a really great dude. Then I ended up the third person I met was Daniel. But of course, when I met him, I met everybody as well. The whole, I mean, it was a whole operation out there, you know. And I remember seeing him for the first time. I walk in this room, and he's got this huge beard, you know, looking like a miner, you know, just with a, you know, hat and everything. And he's sitting there with his feet kicked up on this desk, you know, just feet kicked up, crossed over on this desk. And he didn't say a thing, you know, he just kind of hung out. And, you know, finally, Paul and I get done talking, and he's like, oh, and this, by the way, this is Daniel, you know, and nice to meet you, Daniel, you know, shake his hand and all that stuff. And still throughout all this, the gravity of, you know, what we're about to do, you know, the gravity of what's taking place is still, it's just, you know, kind of just going through the motions, you know, it all just happened so quick. Yeah, that's how I met Paul and Daniel. And I was always treated great. I loved it, you know, from everybody in the crew, you know, some really great people. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, it did seem like a very tight knit group. Like, was the atmosphere very, yeah, like as you said, supportive, but very like, you know, not stuffy or anything like that.
Right.
Not
No, it wasn't.
corporate.
Yeah, you weren't walking around, you know, just on your best behavior. I mean, everybody was great, first name basis, you know, hey, how's it going? You know.
Okay, cool.
So it was really cool. It was very humbling at the same time. So
What do you mean by humbling?
you know, it's being from a little town of, you know, 1,500 people, to see all these people that, you know, are from all over the world, you know, all together in this, you know, makeshift little village, you know, in the middle of the desert, you know, in Texas. It's really neat, you know. I enjoyed it. It was just awe-inspiring. It was,
Gives you a taste of the outside world.
sure.
And
Yeah,
as a kid, you know, you're innocent and yeah.
Certainly.
Yeah. And I mean, you like just in the film, I mean, you have a very big part in the film. You know,
Right.
It's not like you're just on a couple scenes and you just do something cute and you leave, you know, it's like you're really, you know, in the film. And I think a lot of I would say maybe what you have to do, but also what you have to respond to, I'd say more so, is very, you know, emotionally charged and very intense. Now, obviously, as a kid, you don't understand the weight probably of those emotions, but you still have to, you know, respond accordingly. Because a lot of those scenes are, you know, between you and Daniel Day-Lewis. And I kind of wanted to get a sense of like, what is it like kind of going through that journey, you know, having to do all those, you know, such a wide variety of scenes with a person like that range from very simple to very, you know, emotional and all that. What was that like, just as a kind of a journey for you?
At first it was a little difficult, you know, to go from not having any kind of experience or interest in acting, you know, to diving into that world of, you know, I'm not going to say make believe, but you know what I mean? You dive into that world where you are just acting, you know, and that to me it was hard to do at first. But when it got, you know, when it happened, I could tune into it, you know, like nothing. And it was great to be around such great talent, you know. Everybody involved was I mean, I watched it earlier today just to kind of try to jog my memory on some of this stuff, you know.
Nice.
And I mean, I'm blown away. It's just a masterpiece. Everybody involved was just fantastic, you know. And so it wasn't really hard to do, you know, once I figured out how to act, you know, and get the ball rolling. It wasn't hard to do once. I mean, because I had such great talent to work with. You know, I got a crash course from some of the best in the biz. You know, I mean, it was fantastic. I you know, I didn't want it to end.
Yeah. Well, I mean, notoriously just in the media, and you know, I take all of that with a grain of salt, but you know, somebody like Daniel Day-Lewis, and he's not the only one, but you know, he gets blown out of proportion, I think, as somebody who's very method, and I know that he is method, but what was your experience? I mean, was he very in character all the time? Was he just more kind of in accent? Was he very serious? Could he
was
joke?
certainly, he's a professional, you know. I mean, he definitely took his craft seriously. He definitely took his craft very, very seriously. There was, you know, one time when he kind of sat me down, and I believe he talked about it somewhere in an interview, and just kind of explained to me, because I'll never forget, we were doing this scene, guy dies on the rig, you know, underneath the rig floor. He's up under there doing something, tools fall, kill him.
Mm-hmm.
And Daniel just, you know, spud in the well the day before. So he was drunk and laid up in bed, and he jumps up and goes and starts getting dressed. And we did where I would jump up, get dressed too, you know, like I'm gonna go check it out, you know, this is business. And he just so in character, you know, what are you doing, you know, and just starts getting after me, and I wasn't ready for it, you know, me being a non-thespian, you know. I was not ready. I was just I was shocked, you know. My dad was real hard on me growing up, so it was just like, you know, a flashback or something.
Yeah.
And so he pulled me to the side after that, and in the following day or something, he said, look, he's like, I love you, man. I care about you. He's like, sometimes I'm gonna have to, you know, that's what this is. That's what this business is. And that's when it all clicked for me, you know. But in the moment of that scene, it was just like so much, like this guy is the greatest, you know, to ever do it, you know. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, in my opinion, he certainly is.
Yes.
So to watch him work like that and just it's like he could take you away from the fact that you're doing a film, you know. I mean, especially me when I was, you know, 8, 9 years old.
Yeah.
But I could probably do it now, you know. I mean, he's good. So
I believe that.
So yeah, so I kind of, I mean, I understood it. And afterwards it was said and done. I was like, okay, whatever, come back, you know.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
And so by the time he pulled me to the side, I was like, I know, you know, I got you, you know, it's all good.
Yeah.
We're here to you know, make a film, you know, it is what it is.
And I mean, you could say this about anybody that, you know, but did you spend a lot of time outside of filming? I mean, I know it's very intensive, but any time outside, getting dinner with any of the cast or crew or anybody specifically or anything like that?
Yeah, I spent some time with Daniel and Paul, and, you know, they came to like one of my little league baseball games, because while we're doing this movie, you know, I'm playing baseball.
Oh, that's great.
They're just sitting up there watching, you know, at a little baseball field there in Alpine, you know.
Yeah.
It was great. Yeah, it's really cool.
Paul Dano is in the film as well.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a wonderful actor in his own right. And how was he, and what was it like meeting Paul?
That guy was intense as well. I mean, he was a great dude, you know, but during filming, he was very intense. He's very good at what he does, you know. You know, one of the best in the biz. So he was just another, you know, great dude to watch and learn from, and kind of, you know, just spend time with, you know. And I spent a lot of time, you know, just kind of picking his brain, and he's a great one to, you know, great brain to pick, you know. So he played 2 different roles, you know, in that. So it was, he had enough range to make it super, you know, great. And, you know, it was also, there's a part in the film where he comes up as, you know, Eli comes in and hands us dinner plates while we're setting up camp, you know, before we start quail hunting. And of course, at this point, we'd already seen, you know, Paul Sunday, right? And he'd already came and, you know, sold out his family's, you know, info. Mm-hmm. So there's a point, and it wasn't scripted. It was just the most beautiful thing. Where he walks away after handing us these plates, and Daniel and I kind of stand up, look at each other. I look at him, he looks away, he looks at me, I look away, you know, and it was just like this really neat little moment where, you know, it just fell in perfectly. I mean, we kind of really worked it. And you know, it's like, is this the same guy, you know, or is that a different guy, you know?
Okay, so that wasn't worked out at all before. Was it just in the moment?
I mean, there was like supposed to be, you know, we just kind of look and we're like little, but the way we did it, you know, where it was, you know, I kind of look at Daniel in disbelief and look at him, you know, we just kind of exchanged glances. That, you know, I thought that was really neat.
I know exactly what you're talking about. It's a great little beat.
Yeah,
it's a great beat. And it does feel very in the moment. I always thought it was a great reaction. Yeah, because I felt the exact same way. I think we all do, like, okay, that was what's happening. Like, that's weird.
And so that's where, I mean, Daniel or Paul, you know, Dano had to, you know, he done such a fantastic job and working these characters, you know, to where they weren't just two polar opposites, you know, they were twin brothers. And it was just, he did such a fantastic job. And I think that's what makes that little beat so it makes it click so well. And
so just when you just think about the whole experience, was there a scene or maybe a day that you just thought was real tough, really difficult, and you just, you know, stressed or I'm over it, anything like that?
Any day that I mean, I had probably a handful of days where I had to go and lather up and, you know, fake oil.
Yeah.
I mean, any day I had to do that, it was probably 2 days. I don't know. But any day that I had to do that, it was just miserable. I hated it. You know, I was always the kid that, my mom tells this better than I do, but I would be, you know, outside playing, making mud pies or something when I was just a wee little 3-year-old, and come running inside and be freaking out because my hands are dirty, you know, and I can't touch anything. And you know, I was always real kind of weird about my hands and just being dirty. So, you know, having to put all that, you know, fake oil on was just,
Oh yeah.
So I'd always try to get, you know, hey, let's get this going. You know, I'm going to get this done. I'm going to do it right. You know, so I have to do it again.
No, it doesn't sound pleasant at all. I can understand that. Overall, what kind of direction would PTA give you? Just, was he very simple? Was he very clear about what he wanted? Was he okay if you wanted to, you know, improvise a little bit? How was that, if you remember?
I think it was relative, you know, to the situation of the scene. There a time I remember getting blown off the derrick, you know, or the doghouse or what have you.
Yeah.
You know, they've got just crap coming out. It's raining everywhere. They've got, you know, wood coming down. I mean, and I'm just getting like rained on with, you know, this oil, you know, and I'm laying there kind of screaming. And that was when Paul was like, hey, you know, scream, let's go. Come on, get some more, you know, let's start screaming, you know. And like, he wanted me to really go, you know, into it and not over the top, you know, I dare say, you know, just really kind of get into it. And that's where I didn't have a lot of experience, you know, as far as like acting in general. You know, it was weird for me to have to, you know, really kind of overdo it, you know, right then. But it worked out, you know. So that was, you know, one time I can think of off the top of my head where he told me what he wanted, and that's what, you know, and that's what we did. But other than that, he was very laissez-faire kind of guy. I mean, he's definitely a director. He handles business, you know, it's all right there. And probably one of the best to do it, you know. So but yeah, that's the time I remember.
You know, if they had gone more just get the Hollywood kid route, I think it would have been over the top. It would have been very, you know, very kind of performance like, you know, and kind of gimmicky.
That's why they were so in depth, you know, casting. That's why I was asked the questions I was asked, you know, getting into it. It's kind of, you know, I believe that, you know, Paul had this idea, you know, PTA had this idea that, you know, it's going to be a very real, you know, salt of the earth kind of character. And they wanted to find somebody that, you know, was that. So it was very real. Yeah. It wasn't like drama getting in there and, you know, just you know, Shakespeareing it up. It was more like just, you know, be real. It's a realist, you know, type of role, you know.
Well, you did mention, I mean, a couple times already just now, you mentioned, you know, the drilling rig scene and, you know, just the explosion and all of that. And that's a scene that is a huge centerpiece. You know, big kind of American epics always tend to have a centerpiece that, you know, a sequence that you hone in on is really tense and special. And I find this one to be just jaw-droppingly amazing. It's reminiscent of like, it kind of gives me almost like a Lawrence of Arabia type of vibe. Just it has such power, and I want to know, what was that like? It looks like it was difficult to shoot, difficult to time and choreograph and all of that.
It was certainly a big operation. You know, there was tons of preparation leading up to it. You know, there was tons of you know, this is going to happen, that's going to happen. You know, it like one of those you know, marble deals. We drop the marble and it goes and starts setting off things. There's a name, but it was certainly like akin to that. I mean, it was like. It was a very huge, you got one shot, you know, kind of deal. So there was tons of preparation for it. And it really came together beautifully. It was, it's my favorite, you know, scene as well, or little sequence. It's just fantastic. From everything from, you know, the soundtrack to just the camera, you know, he's running down the hill with me, you know, and I thought that was really cool, you know, and there's just so that to me, that is humbling, you know, like that to watch this unfold, you know, now years later. Because I went for a while without watching it, you know. I didn't watch the movie because you know, I was at the premiere, you know, I watched it several times after that, but to watch it as an adult now, it's very humbling. It's just insane, you know. I mean, it's such a masterpiece.
It really is.
And even if I never do anything else again, which I'm not, you know, actively looking, but that was the one to do. So
absolutely.
Yeah, it was definitely the one. So
and approximate, I mean, like, how long did that take? I mean, was it multiple days, I would assume, or was it just like one shot and done? Or
you know, one shot and done. Once they set fire to that derrick, you know, it was pretty much that was it. That's all she wrote, and it burned forever. It burned a lot longer than they thought it would. Just like a whole afternoon, you know. Maybe we started in the morning, you know, kind of going through stuff, and like I said, it was days leading up to it. Like, this is what we're gonna do, you know. But yeah, it was, once it all happened, it start to finish, you know, it was probably an afternoon, like it was noon to, you know, midnight or whatever.
Okay. And you already mentioned this, but, you know, just talking about, as an example, Daniel carrying you, and, you know, that like long take, kind of just bringing it back.
I've always been like a sucker for long shots, you know, just shots that, you know, kind of play out and then the camera follows, you know, and not necessarily any, you know, cuts in them. So I think it came together great. I mean, from everything, I want to say it was, it's been years, but when Kieran's running up to kind of pull me off the top of the rig, you know, just everything following him in, that was really neat. I want to say that was him. It's been forever. I didn't watch that this morning. I skipped right through it, you know, kind of get to the meat. So you know, some things I really like artistic things, you know, like little nuances that most people probably miss, like when Daniel does kind of surrender himself, you know, just to get that bandy tracked, you know, so he can build the pipeline through there. And Eli smacks him around up on the stage. You know, there's that little part where he turns around and grabs his hand, shakes it, you know, and he's facing away. You don't know what he says, but he says something in Eli's face, you know, he just,
I know.
that's one of, like, I love stuff like that, you know, and I notice it now because I'm, you know, I'm older, and you know, it's been long enough that I'm not, you know, just thinking a certain way about it. So now when I watch it, it's like watching a whole new movie.
Right. Yeah. I've always wondered what he said to him, of course. What would you say what was your favorite scene to shoot, if any?
I would probably say it would, you know, the quail hunting scene. When we're in there shooting a quail, you know, with these shotguns. There was a lot of preparation leading up to, you know, this is how you handle a firearm, you know, this is what you can and can't do, you know. And I knew all that stuff, but they, you know, they had to cover their bases to make sure that, you know, liabilities were, you know, taken care of. But yeah, it was very thorough. But once we got into it, you know, getting to shoot shotguns, you know, at 8, 9 years old, that was really cool, regardless. I never once fired, live ammunition, but just loud, it was super cool. Yeah. So that would probably be it.
Always watching that, I always got a sense you were enjoying yourself.
Oh, absolutely.
Not as the character, but just as you. I always kind of got a sense that was real. You were really
that was pure passion right there.
all method.
And
it was really beautiful. I mean, the shots in that, I mean, it was just beautiful out there. I really like that scene as well.
right.
Also, so after the oil rig, I'll go back to that. After that scene, that's a big turning point, obviously, huge turning point in the film. And beyond that, obviously, we transition into the second half where you're deaf for the rest, or you're playing deaf for the rest of the film. And I always thought, that's where the emotion really lies. That's where it really starts to settle in, the pathos for the main character, Daniel. And I always thought you did a really good job on that. Again, very believable, very natural, and just right, not over the top or anything. And
like in my mind, I'm thinking, if I don't believe, that, like me watching, I'd go watch on the little TV after we, got done shooting a take,
yeah.
If I don't believe it, no one's going to believe it, and I'm real critical on myself. So that was kind of my approach to it, was just little facial expressions and, how, reacting to people coming into your line of sight, even though you heard them walking up, things like that. Because you didn't hear them walking up, when it comes down to it. That's kind of how I took it. PTA pulled me aside, and he's, trying to really make sure, because he knows I don't have any experience doing this stuff. So he's really trying to, hey, are we on the same page? What's going on? So we talk about it, and he has me put on earplugs and headphones, and he's talking to me real, softly. He's like, this is, just kind of testing it out, making sure that, I understood, which I did, but he's a very thorough, guy, really wanted a good product. So, that was kind of how I guess how he got me ready. But yeah, that's how I kind of took it. It's just like, if I don't believe it, no one's going to believe it.
Yeah. And that's actually a really good trick to do it, with a kid, even if you already know what you're, I find doing that that gives you a sense of, I can't hear my own snap, and it's weird and all that.
And he kind of got me, and I think he wanted me to like talk, with headphones and all that, hearing prevention or protection on, just to try and, make me understand that, when I'm talking, it may be super loud and I don't know it because I can't really hear it, and that was kind of his deal with it. And I guess that's better that I clarify that, because, that makes more sense. But that was how he wanted to show me that, that people who can't hear sometimes are loud, and don't realize it. So, and it was probably good he did, because I didn't have much experience at all with deaf people, being from a little town in West Texas and ranches before that. I didn't run into deaf people very often. So
yeah. Okay. Yeah. And I really like a lot of the scenes between you and Daniel that are silent in that whole sequence, where you're just hearing kind of the music and everything. I just think that's like very poetic and beautiful and very devastating. So I love the way all of that was cut together. And then, I guess shortly after that point, the half brother is introduced. Not really. And of course, he's played by Kevin J. O'Connor. And do you remember much about him? He's a very
level, I really don't.
Okay.
I remember, his voice, the way he sounds, all that. I don't know if he was method acting, but that was him. He was a real soft spoken kind of guy, not necessarily with a fragile voice, but he's got one of those voices that, kind of cracks a little bit,
Yeah.
But like I said, he could have been, just really in character the whole time I talked to him. I didn't talk to him very much, but he was a nice guy, very, like the rest of them, very good at what he does and about his business, so.
Yeah. He, he's been a character actor, I think, for a long time. How I first saw him was in The
Mummy. Me too. Yeah.
Yeah. And so in that, he's really playing up the cracked voice and real, he's more cartoony there. So I always figure maybe he just had that and is more understated in real life. But
yeah, he's a funny guy from what I remember. He was comical. Had me
okay.
laughing. I mean, because I would cut up, and he kind of could read the room, and cut up with me a little bit, kind of connect. We'd kind of connect that way. But he was a good dude. He was a funny guy. He had me laughing a lot. So
Nice.
very good.
And yeah, I mean, when he's there, obviously at a certain point, you're the one who figures it out, or, you figure out something's not right with this guy and I need to get my dad's attention. And I really think that's cool, with the fire and everything, how you're trying to get his attention. How was that? How did they do that scene? Like, how did they handle just the fire and all that around you? How were you instructed?
They mixed a mix of, I guess accelerant that wasn't super like volatile, so the fire kind of traveled, it didn't travel quite as fast as, there was, certain tricks like they laid down some plywood and put some of that on there, and I drop a match on it, and the camera's on my face and you see that glow. I mean, that was all that was. And then when it came to actually lighting the big one, I don't remember if I did that or not. I don't think I did,
Okay.
So there was certain ways to do it, and I guess they picked the right way. There's tons of guys that knew what they were doing. And I mean, that was my favorite part about kind of in between takes. I just kind of kick it with the camera dolly guy, just go kick it with random people and kind of talk to them and get like, what have you worked on? Like that was my big thing, is this whole world's new to me. So you got guys that are like, oh, I was I did this and that, and all these movies I knew, and I was like, oh, that's really cool, so it was awesome
Nice.
to me. But they were definitely very seasoned, all of them were just fantastic. So
yeah, I just, I think that's a really good scene, and it's an important scene for your character. It's like, wow, okay. And I really like the part where you're running outside and Daniel is chasing you, and you guys are like behind that bush, shrub, or whatever it is, and then he takes you. I really like all of that. I think it's really good stuff. So what was the last scene that you shot?
The last scene that I shot, Paul Sunday comes in, into that, it's like a house, they've got a rig, in this house pretty much. Or like we were in the doghouse, or, whatever it was called then, I'm not, but that was the last scene that, I was a part of. And pretty sure that was like the wrap day, and I think, people went and did certain things. Like we did things at the, like sound stuff at the Skywalker ranch.
Wow.
Which was really neat. But that was like the last day of, filming, for everybody in Marfa in that area. So
yeah, on set.
Yeah.
And what was that like? I mean, what were your emotions like? Were you kind of sad about it, relieved, mixed?
I didn't want it to end. It was really, it was probably 3 or 4 months of shooting and production that, or shooting that we went through.
Yeah.
And maybe even longer than that, but I wasn't a part of, a ton of it. It become, you've made so many friends, you've made friends and just, you've gotten to know people and their story and where they're from. And, I still remember some of these guys, yeah, they left a lasting mark on me. And so when it all came to an end, I really didn't want it to, but I was real excited to see, what they did with the film, after shooting was done, and, you went into like the like production side of things.
Yeah, like the post-production stuff.
Oh yeah.
Did you get a sense that people felt proud of what they were doing? And once it was done on that last day, you got a sense people were proud and emotionally invested and all that?
Yeah, I mean, there were tears, they were, hugging, there was all kinds of stuff. I mean, everybody had poured their heart and soul into this, this project. And I was just very lucky and fortunate to, kind of get to ride along, and so when it all came to an end, it was certainly it was bittersweet for everybody, you know, not necessarily just myself. But I got that, you know, that vibe, you know, from the room, that it was just, you know, everybody's happy and, you know, good friends. Hey, you know, last hugs kind of deal, you know. I mean, I guess I can't stress enough that, you know, you've made friendships with people.
Yeah. Everything about the film just feels absolutely personal, just in the feel of it. So, you know, that's exactly what I would have assumed. In terms, well, you just mentioned like post-production and all of that. So, and you mentioned Skywalker Ranch. So what was that like? What were you asked to do for that? Just kind of ADR kind of stuff?
Yeah, like kind of, you know, just kind of things I was asked to, hey, come back and, you know, let's, you know, watch on this big screen, you watch yourself, and then you say what, you know, and that was really neat within itself.
And I mean, you've already mentioned that you went to the premiere and everything, and that, so you did see the film with everybody at the premiere. Okay. Yeah. Right. See, that's something I did wonder, because it's an adult film, not in the sense that there's like, you know, nudity and tons of, but you know, it's very adult. Like, I'm sure it would be not something that a kid would want to see, but obviously you're in it. So when you were a kid, just like as a child watching it, what was that experience like? Was it more just like that was what we did and you kind of couldn't separate yourself yet? Was it more like that?
Maybe there was an aspect of that. It was definitely a film, you know, and I, you know, I was able to wrap my mind around that for sure. It's still fresh, you know, it's still, there's still tons of, you know, like memories, you know, going on with all this stuff. So it's hard to like watch the film for what it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, watching it now, I mean, it gets better every time I watch it. It had come together so well. I mean, I knew it would, you know, like I said, I could tell everybody was very good at what they did.
Yeah.
But by the time it had come together, you know, it was just mind blown. It was very just beautiful. You know, I guess that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, I think that's the perfect word. And I mean, that movie came out in 2007, which that was probably, and by my estimation, one of the last really solid years for movies, where like a lot of classics came out of that year, like in Hollywood films, like, you know, you've got No Country for Old Men and There Will Be Blood and such. But I remember very vividly There Will Be Blood. It was critically acclaimed, but it took time for it to really become what it is. I mean, I think it definitely touched a nerve, but it took time for it to kind of develop into like cult classic, and then I think just bona fide classic.
Right. It's really nice to talk to people that appreciate film, you know. A lot of the people, you know, I'm not like a people hater, but a lot of people around here are just bumpkins, you know, so they don't appreciate film like you're supposed to, like, you know, and I don't, you know, really talk about it with anybody, but somebody be like, hey, that guy was in that movie, There Will Be Blood, you know, he was the blind kid, you know, and I'm like, you didn't even watch the movie, like what, you know? So, and then they're like, oh, I didn't watch it because, you know, the first 30 minutes, you know, there's no sound or anything. I'm like, it's not 30 minutes, and it's very artistic, you know, I mean, it's
right.
It's a masterpiece, you know, and people that have no patience can't get into stuff like that. And I think that's where the future of film's headed. It's hard to see, like you said, 2007 was like one of the last great years for film, because now everything that comes out is just perverted jokes, you know, and just ridiculous, like quick stuff, and people's attention spans aren't, you know, hell, we're in the TikTok age, you know, as soon as something gets boring, swipe, you know, so
yeah, it's all like
are creating films having to, you know, captivate an audience that is almost, you know, incaptivatable, you know, so
pretty much
it's a damn shame, but yeah, that film came together, and I'm so glad, because I mean, let's say you know, millions of years from now, I mean, these are our, you know, somebody comes across our stuff, you know, we're buried or whatever, and they come, you know, scientifically, they're going to look at our art of our time, you know, like we do thousands of years ago. You know, we look at paintings and, you know, and try to get an idea of, and I'm very proud to be a part of that, because that's going to be a film that, I mean, people for years and years to come, you know, kind of, it'll be acclaimed, you know.
Absolutely. And I think it's only going to grow with time. I mean, really, I think it will.
Yeah. And I was exaggerating when I say millions of years, but you know what I mean? Like it's going to be timeless. So.
Oh, absolutely. I think, you know, for decades and decades, people will be talking about it, truly. When the Oscars, that was, that's always a huge thing for a movie. Obviously, Daniel Day-Lewis won the Oscar for Best Actor, and he thanked you in his speech, or he mentioned you in the speech. And I thought that was really, really nice. Like, I thought that was cool. And you mentioned that there are a lot of people that you still remember, and you remember those bonds. Did you keep in touch with anybody in the cast or crew, multiple people?
I did there for a little while. I kind of keep in touch with Daniel, kind of keep in touch with Paul. I haven't really talked to him much at all, as of late, but I kind of, as far as like the crew and getting to know people, I did. When I had, when MySpace was around, I had some friends on MySpace, and we kind of kept in touch that way. But it's kind of, as life goes, whenever you're coming into your teenage years, and I mean, I think a lot of people are guilty of it. You don't really have time for anybody else. You're on your own little deal, so yeah. Even your parents, you don't realize how much of your best friends your parents are until you probably, like, I didn't realize it till I was 21, 22, I like call my stepdad every day, Joe. I call him all the time, just to bug him, see what he's doing. Because I mean, we both work on the road and in the oil and gas industry. So our schedules don't necessarily click as much as I'd like for him to, but he always hears from me. So, but yeah, that especially, and I hate that this happened, but becoming a young man, all those people I was keeping up with, that were keeping up with me, you kind of start to drift away, and I think everybody kind of grows, and I think that's how that happens ultimately.
And that's really the sad thing about the entertainment industry, or just the art business. It's like in film, it's like you work so hard on something and you're just a group, and then it's over. It's just over. Right. And then you move on to the next one. And that can be hard for somebody, especially if you've never had that experience, but it can be hard. Just, you could have been working your whole life, and it's like, this movie really meant a lot, and I really bonded with these people. That's very hard. I always imagine like what it must have been like for the Lord of the Rings crew. I mean, they were in New Zealand for years, to shoot that film. I mean, gosh, like that must have been devastating.
Well, that's another thing about film that I've noticed is now it's, shooting is a lot shorter. They try to do it as fast as they can, bang it out as quick as they can, film a whole movie in a month, or what have you. And it's because, everything's about money, yes. Less time is money, 110%, so that's, and I'm glad to see, Paul's work is still, very quality work.
Oh yeah, it really is.
Daniel's work is still very quality work,
Sure.
Very proud of the clan that was a part of, There Will Be Blood, because they're still out there turning out bangers,
Yeah, they are.
They really are. But it's just a damn shame that, the world's turning out the way it is as far as film.
Oh, I trust me, I totally agree with you. It's very sad, but also when a really good one comes out, I get extra excited about it,
Right. I haven't been to the theaters to see a movie in years. I mean, partly because COVID, but there just hasn't been anything that's come out, in my life. It's just, I'm busy, I'm a businessman. I go and I work, and I really need to get into that and start seeing some of the stuff that's coming out. Maybe it'll, redo my faith in film. Some, short films are they're still heavy hitters. There's still some really good ones coming out, and I think that's where we're headed, with social media and streaming and things the way that they are. I think that short films are going to be more or less the because they're easy to stream. You scroll through Facebook and you can find a short film that's uploaded. I feel like that's where a lot of it's headed today. As
you mentioned before, like TikTok, just like the brief, and IG stories, there's even a weird art to that. It's like these weird little snippets of one's life. It's very strange. But yeah, I agree. I think that's where we're headed as well as like more virtual, more immersive type of art like that. I would assume, and obviously I don't know, but I would assume that after the experience, did you get a lot of offers for other projects or not?
Yeah.
Or you did?
So at the premiere, the after party or whatever, I was approached by somebody, and she ended up being my agent. So I don't remember what her name was. She wasn't my agent very long because I didn't do anything,
Yeah.
None of it was anything I wanted to do. My parents wanted me to do it, kind of pushing me to And I was like, man, Diary of a Wimpy Kid, like that was and that's a
Wow.
great film, it's a great little movie, but it wasn't something I wanted to do. There was, once
Yeah.
you do, once you're in a film like There Will Be Blood, it's hard to beat, like there's no way. It's almost one of them things, like, and that's why I don't come back. And I don't, like, I get offers still. People track me down, and try to get me to do certain things or what have you. And it's like, okay, I could step back in, but how do I top what I've already done? Right now I'm a one-hit wonder. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Haven't done anything since then. But if I were to do something, I would hate to, get into something that's not very artistic, very quality,
Yeah.
So, I mean, so yeah, I got offers from Diary of a Wimpy Kid and The Blind Side, and I'm sure you can tell because of how this Q&A or interviews gone so far, is I'm not painfully aware of things that I'm saying, like I should be. And I would hate to live my life as an actor, doing interviews and just having to be painfully aware 24/7 of what comes out of my mouth. Because 9 times out of 10, I throw shit out there, and I feel like that's the best way to live. It doesn't bother me none. Is, as long as you're a good person, nothing bad is going to come out of your mouth. But anything you say in the real world, on TV or, like, I'm sure somebody might watch this. What does he mean by that? You know what I mean? And
Sure.
I'm just as genuine as it comes. This is it.
Yeah.
This is me. And now it's so, like you're saying, it's so political. I'm not a political guy. I don't care. As long as nothing affects me in my daily life. Oh well. If I were in that realm, I'd be bald. Like, I'd already be bald. I'm already going there. Like, it's headed that direction. But I would be bald.
Yeah.
I'd be stressed out to the max. Never getting to have a personal life. You don't really have any real friends. People only want to be your friend because of what you can do for them.
Yep.
And I kind of understood all that at a young age. And the choice was simple, like I said. I mean, I just wanted to live. And I saw that, like, when I moved to Albany, people were like, hey, movie star and all that. I didn't like being called movies. It pissed me off so bad,
Yeah.
I just wanted to, like, hey, dude, I'm cool. Like, I want to come up here and talk to you without, hey, what was it like in doing this or that? And, and of course, everybody, especially kids, have their own, like, jealousy. So they're throwing shade at you. You know what I mean? I didn't like dealing with it. I just wanted to be normal. So,
yeah. So, like, what were people kind of like jealous, or were they proud of you? More
if
jealous?
Anybody from Albany finds this video and is watching it, they can tell you, this little town is very, very cliquish. Everybody's better than everybody else. I just wanted to be normal, and that's ultimately what I got. And hell, I've lived 3 or 4 different lifetimes since then. I've done everything for work. I've worked on wind turbines, did solar farm construction, worked on rigs in Colorado. I've worked all over the country. I've worked, right now I'm doing like well logging and plugging and, stuff like that. I'm living the life that I wanted, so it's really good.
Well, that's awesome. Like, really. And I know you're a father now.
Yeah.
And
That's great.
That's wonderful. And I can only imagine that has dramatically changed your life in a way that nothing ever has.
Right. Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. I didn't know what love was. I thought I did.
Mm-hmm.
And I certainly knew what it was, but I didn't know how like intense it could be. Like, I love my son. It's great. Being a father is the greatest thing that ever happened to me. I really enjoy it. And I tell people, because they're like, oh, he looks so much like you. I'm like, yeah, he looks like me if the printer was running out of ink. He's got blonde hair. I just, like, almost black hair.
Yeah. I've noticed. Yeah.
Like, when I sat down to watch, There Will Be Blood, or they're just like kind of skim through it. I was like, there's my son right there. It looks just like, so. And I'm sure I'll see it more and more as he gets bigger. But yeah, I mean, he's certainly changed me, for the better. So
that's wonderful. And yeah, but I mean, that's funny that you mentioned that, because it's like, when it comes to, especially There Will Be Blood, that's a movie at its core about fathers and sons. I mean, it's very simple.
And some people, I've had people that kind of talk about it with me, people that I kind of, that do appreciate film, we'll talk, and if I meet somebody in person or at work or something, and they're talking about it, and they kind of know what they're talking about, I'll sit down and I'll talk about it with them, like, as far as like, if they have an appreciation for it, and it's not just, oh, that movie was quiet for the first 30 minutes, it sucked. Some people will say, Daniel, was an opportunist and used a son to, get ahead, and which I do believe, is true to an extent, but I think there was a human element there, where there was love, in certain instances that you can tell. And, after it's this is what the greatest thing about that film is to me. As soon as he finds his success and hits it big, is everything just starts unraveling and getting terrible, and you see it the whole way. And that's, you see that love in that moment where it starts to unravel. But at first, he's sitting down with that older couple and trying to get, some of their land, leased to drill.
Mm-hmm.
And absolutely, he was using, HW at that point. But
Oh yeah.
you do see there's a human element there, and it's a father-son deal, throughout the, I dare say second half of the film. That's what you see,
Well, yeah. And you're absent for a lot of that second half.
Uh-huh.
It's like the moment that it gets good for him in terms of material wealth,
Uh-huh.
you're gone. And with that
Right.
emptiness, he's empty.
Right.
And the scene that you mentioned with the couple right before that, there's a little voiceover leading into the scene, the ladies and gentlemen,
Right.
and that's one of my favorite shots, is the moment where Daniel is on the train and he, it's like the baby version of your character. And there's just this lovely moment where he touches his face and there's a little smile. And I'm like, I think that's one of the few moments in the whole film that Daniel's not trying to impress anyone. He's not,
Right.
it's just, and there's the love there. You see it, it's just in that moment that I'm like, well, there it is. And you can carry that as a thread, an emotional kind of thread throughout the movie in a way. But absolutely, I think he loved HW. Well, I mean, it sounds like I'm very, very glad to hear that it was such a good experience for you and that you take away so much from it. That's what I was hoping to hear.
Right.
Yeah. Just
Would
because
you have been disappointed if I rolled up, crossed my leg, and was like, that shit, I don't remember any of it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, not
I'll open up about it.
necessarily.
I'll open
Yeah,
up.
no, not necessarily, but sometimes you don't remember. Yeah, sure. But like I kind of get a good feeling about movies when I watch them, especially ones over and over again. You get a sense of the vibe of
Right.
the artists involved.
Right.
And what you're saying falls very much in line with what I expected. And it really makes me happy to hear that it, was an inspiring experience and that you took a lot away from it. I think
Right.
that's fantastic. And I'm also, I mean, I'll be honest, I think you made a really good decision, kind of staying out of all that and kind of
Right.
growing up as a decent human being, an honest worker. And now you have this perspective and not, you're not big headed and all of that. I think that's
Right.
very admirable. So,
Yeah. Well, thank you.
but
if I could figure out how to be uber famous like Daniel, and I'd have to move to Ireland or something, but he seemed to taking it really well. He seemed to handle it well. The guy's out of the spotlight. You can't find the guy, unless he wants to be found. And but you can't do that now. Like, it's so competitive. Like, you can't just disappear into a crevice and then somebody come find you when it's time to work, because you've got 5 million people that are, have a following, they have certain things they offer, so he's done really well. I mean, that guy is an absolute artist from, start to finish, cover to cover, so.
yeah, I mean, I think it's funny. I always think about that because yes, he's probably somebody else who it's like, he doesn't need all this crap. He wants to just live a normal life with the family and all that. But it's like, then you got to come back and accept your Oscar or whatever. And then you have to be thrown into this world where they're just kissing your ass, telling you you're the greatest, this and this. And it's like, but you want to just go back and be a normal person.
He's definitely figured it out. I think he's done really well with, being able to keep his personal, life separate and actually be a human being. That's what makes him one of the greater, individuals, makes him one of the greater people to do it, because he's not out kissing ass and kissing babies. He's
Yeah.
He's taking care of business back home, and hey, it's time to go do a movie. Okay.
Yeah. He's very selective.
Very,
but
you can be when you're at that point, so. Yeah,
but it's not just him. I mean, like Paul Dano, like everybody
right.
is they're very like they're not, in the magazines every week, clubbing, you know. It's like, no, they're artists, and
Right.
you know, he's in all
Definitely.
kinds of movies and people know who he is, but it's not like he's remembered as a movie star. He's remembered for being an actor.
Certainly.
Paul Thomas Anderson, he goes away, comes out when he makes movie, goes back
Certainly.
into his life. It's different for directors obviously than actors, but
Right.
you get a sense from everybody that it's much more about the craft and not about look at me, you know.
Mhm.
And
Well, I think one of the most important things that I probably took away from Paul PTA was my my dad at the time was telling me, "Oh, you know, you got this little trailer. You know, you can get a bigger one next movie you do, and the next movie you get a bigger one. You know, and all this stuff." And I'm like, "Okay, whatever." I thought that was how it's supposed to be because I'm listening to somebody tell me, you know, somebody whose word has a lot of weight. And I was talking to Paul, and I said that to him, and he said, "No, don't be like that. You know, like that's not the way to be at all. You know." And
good.
I just when I think of, and you know, Paul Dano did a great job of state. He doesn't get in the limelight at all. You know, I mean, he doesn't get in the press. He doesn't, you know, like you're saying, just about everybody involved in There Will Be Blood, like, you know, Kevin J. O'Connor, like, what does that guy do? You know, nobody knows. But
Mhm.
when he comes out and he does a film, you know, people know who he is.
Right.
As the years go on, I start to forget more and more about it. So I'm glad I'm able to sit down and, you know, run through some of the stuff with you, you know, get it documented, you know, so to speak.
Yeah.
It does, you know, it does me no, I'm not out of my way at all to sit down and talk about it with somebody, you know.
It seems like you don't do a lot of interviews. I mean, I don't.
No, I've never.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And so like, it just means so much that you know, like, let me do this. I really, like, honestly, I can't thank you enough.
Well, I did an interview. I saw this the other day. I want to share before we part ways. But
Yeah.
I cringed so hard, like, and I hope that, you know, I mean, people are gonna go look it up now if they see this, you know. But there's a red carpet, like, at the premiere. There's an interview, you know. They're kind of just getting everybody's take on the film, and everybody's got these great takes on it. You know, the way you're supposed to approach, you know. I didn't know because I'd never been to it, you know. And so, you know, people are like, yeah, the film, this and that, you know, whatever. And then my little ass, I'm, you know, yay tall, and they stick a microphone in my face. I'm like, hey, it was real fun, you know. I got this real thick accent. I'm just like, oh my God.
I think, weren't you wearing like a red sweater?
Yes, I cringed so hard when I saw that. I was like, if there's anything I could do in this planet,
No.
you remove this video from the face of the earth. Like, oh my God.
You were a kid. I thought it was so cute. No, they're like, you're talking about like, yeah, Daniel was really nice and he'd come over for dinner. I thought it was so cute.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Yeah.
I thought it was precious.
Cringeworthy.
No,
I just was such a, you know, little cowboy, you know, little
exactly.
country bumpkin, you know.
And it's perfect. Like, I mean, well, for the time being, for that particular
Right.
project, maybe not Hollywood, but for
Yeah.
that particular project, absolutely perfect. So,
Right. Yeah,
um,
absolutely.
but,
And there you have it. Again, I want to say a huge thank you to Dillon for taking the time to have this conversation with me. Thank you guys so much for watching. I want to give a shout out to my patrons as always. Thank you guys so much for your support. If you are interested in becoming a patron, the link for that is below, as well as the rest of my social media information. You can watch more videos here, and you can subscribe if you'd like. Catch you next time.